So you don't, what about, you said you don't know about demons. Do you just think demons are just asshole ghosts?
It could very well be.
A lot's happened since yesterday!
My friends, welcome to another episode of A Lot's Happened Since Yesterday. I would say it's a spooky episode, but I don't know. We're going to see where this goes. It should be, because we were told the last time we talked that our guests today go dark. We might have to put that to the test. Don't forget to like the channel, subscribe to the channel, follow the channel. Make sure you go to our Facebook, follow our Facebook group. We're doing lots of stuff on there, a lot of fun. As always, my name is Cody Walker.
My name is Ralph Busso. And our guests today are the paranormal experts, in my opinion, from Dark Sun Radio. Erick B and Vicky V, what's up, guys? What's going on?
How you guys doing?
Hey. I want to say happy Monday because that's how I usually start my my conversations every week. Happy faux Monday.
We can call it fake Monday because we had Monday off, didn't we? So we'll just pretend it's Monday.
If we're going to be honest, no, Vicky.
I'm just going to throw it right out there. No,
Erick's already drinking scotch, so you know
that's not unusual.
It's a usual Monday, in my opinion.
But it's Tuesday.
Absolutely. Only A's and N's and Y.
Only A's and N's. That's right. That's absolutely right.
Nice. Love it.
So let's get into this. To get into this, we connected with Dark Sun Rising through a mutual interest in music, didn't we? Any Given Sin.
Yes. Yes.
The t-shirt that Vicky is wearing right now, she represents. Boom.
Boom.
Easy there.
Okay, since that was our connection, I need to go ahead and do that for you.
There you go. That'll work.
Boom is not your boom, but yeah. Yeah. No, those guys are cool guys, and they deserve every bit of support that you guys give them. It's pretty awesome that you guys support them as much as you do. I gotta say that. Just
we love them.
Did you guys actually? Did you guys get like directly hooked up with them, or is it just a fan base that you just swung into and started supporting?
So they're from my hometown.
Oh, okay.
A couple of the guys. So I'm friends with the drummer. And when they started putting out music, since they're not currently on a label, it allows us to work with them directly. And they've given us permission to use their music on the show. So every time they come out with something new, we keep playing it.
Nice.
They're pretty cool guys, aren't they? So
awesome.
where are you out of, Vicky?
So I'm in Southern Maryland, about 20 miles south of DC.
Maryland. Shout out to Maryland people. What's up? Any Given Sin. That's where they're from, right?
Exactly.
Are you going to go see them live when they come out? They have a couple shows coming.
Actually, so they have a show this weekend, but it's in Ohio, and I'm not driving out because I'll be doing something else. They are playing at Rockfest in Wisconsin in July.
Right.
And we bought tickets for it last year. There's actually quite a few bands that are playing that are really smaller bands. I'm going to see all the second level bands. So we decided, what the heck, let's fly out there. We've gone, my husband and I and a couple of our friends go to the Incarceration Festival at one of my favorite haunted locations in Ohio every year. So we decided instead of doing that this year, we would go out and see them in Wisconsin. So something different.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Erick, you're from Boston, huh?
Yeah, man. Originally from Boston. Moved down here. I live just south of Philly now. Moved down here. Holy crap. In like 9.5 years now.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think, man?
I like Philly. Like I said, wherever I lay my head is home, if I can quote Metallica for a moment. But Boston is, quote, my home. That's where all my family's from. But like I said, I love Philly.
With Boston being so rich in this kind of culture, let's face it, Salem. I was out at Salem, you know what I mean? And it was fucking cool, man. I'm not going to lie. I loved it, man. The people were super friendly, super cool, my kind of people. I'm from the East Coast, I'm from the Bronx, New York. So it's a little bit different, but at the same time, East Coasters, we share a lot in common. So big props, man. How did you, because I know that this was your baby, right?
Yeah.
So when did you decide you were going to start this?
You're talking about like a podcast kind of show.
Yeah, well, I know that you had a radio show, and that you decided to switch over to this. What made you do that? And when did you get, when did you start getting very interested in radio?
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. Like I said, from the Boston area, I grew up not too far from Salem, Massachusetts. So I could get there within about a half an hour. So I spent tons of time in Salem. Nice. Great place. I always had an interest in the paranormal field. Always had it. I started investigating in the mid-90s, right? So 95, I'm showing off my age. In the mid-90s. I did college radio in the late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. So I did, so I was like the radio jock in my college radio station. Didn't touch radio because it didn't make money. You know what I mean? I wanted to actually eat and have a place over, roof over my head.
Right.
So radio just had to go. Love the paranormal stuff. Now, you basically go back to 2010, and I went to an open house at a haunted place up in Boston. I said, oh, this is kind of cool. Because there really wasn't that much in paranormal investigating. It was just kind of getting off the ground. And so, you had stuff on TV, but no one really doing a lot of ghost hunting. And so I bumped into this guy from the local radio station who was doing a remote. I said, oh, that's really cool. I didn't think people would actually really care about talking about ghosts. He says, oh, no, people love this stuff. All right, cool. So then he hooks me up with somebody who says, we're trying to do internet-based radio, talking about ghosts. I said, sounds great. And so I got kicked off, and then a year later on the PowerX radio network, kicked off the own show. And then, like I said, I was on my own for a long, long time. And then, Vicki, how long has it been now, love? 4 years now?
Yeah, I think we're starting 5.
5 years. Like I said, 5 years ago, I said, I need someone else to kind of make what I thought was great even better. And so Vicki was the cherry on that sundae.
So how'd Vicki come into play?
How did I get started with Eric, or just in general?
Well, with Eric at this point, yeah. I
want to know how you met him. That's the first.
We met at Phenomenology, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay, yeah. So I was working with another paranormal group for a couple of years, and there's a convention in just outside of Philly in Gettysburg. It's where it's traditionally been, and we met up there, just mutual friends. I mean, it's a very small community. The same folks that go to the conventions, they travel the same packs, and we become friends. And so we met initially there, and then we just became friends and started hanging out, doing stuff and doing investigations together and things like that. And then I got to have my husband play music at their wedding. Mm-hmm. And that really sort of solidified our friendship. We started talking quite more, often and doing things together. And then I started visiting, and we've just been hanging out ever since.
So would you guys consider yourself metalheads?
Absolutely.
Okay. Vicki, you
might be a little more hardcore metal.
Well, no, I know. I figured that. I think I see Eric, and I think, yeah, he's a little bit more hardcore than you, Vicki. but no, that's not a bad thing. All I'm saying is, you know what I mean? He's from the East Coast. I could totally see it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, so my question is, do you guys have a lot in common? Because you got to work together. So I got to wonder, how does that relationship work out?
Vicki,
you guys have been doing 5 years now, right?
I will step back on this one because I want to step on a landmine. I'll let Vicki answer first.
Great, thanks. It's funny because we have a lot in common because we have a lot of the same friends and we have a lot of the same interests and things like that. We're definitely a little bit opposite on certain topics, but I think that's one of the things that works for us is, sort of yin and yang, and we play off each other a little bit. So he gets a little out there sometimes and I have to reel him back in.
Nice way of saying that. Thank you.
I keep him from getting us in trouble.
How the fuck did you get into the paranormal, dude? I mean, seriously. So from a guy growing up in Boston, how did you get into the paranormal? What was your first experience that sold you on this?
Well, like I said, growing up just outside of Salem, every time you went there, you always saw the witches who were legit, like the Cabot family, right? Like you went to Salem, you had like Crowhaven's Corner, right? Which I'm sure you stopped into. So that kind of got it into my head. The first paranormal experience I ever had, I was a teenager. Actually, I was like late teens. Yeah, I think it was late teens. I was just going into college, and my house got wiped out in a flood. And so we needed a new place to stay.
Damn.
And so my parents rented a house off of one of my mother's coworkers. And she said, my mom just passed away. I'm starting to get the stuff cleaned out, but we're going to put it on the market next year. But if you need it, because obviously you need a place to stay, you could rent it from us. So my parents needing a place to stay said, yeah, fine. So this lady who was elderly, they finished off the basement, which was level to the street. And she lived there until the final days of her life. She died in the house. And so one night I was up and it was like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up on the living room couch, which was again downstairs. This is where the lady's bed was which is where our couch was. And back in the day, TV shut off at like 1 in the morning. It was nothing but fuzz. So I'm waking up to fuzz. And all of a sudden I hear this scrape, tap, 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 scrape, tap, tap. What the hell is that noise? I'm thinking, is it a mouse? And I didn't think anything of it. I woke up and I'm like, what the F is this? And just kind of went to bed. But I kept hearing that scrape, tap, tap. A couple of days later, my mom asked me to go down to the basement in one of the storage closets and says, can you get me whatever? I think it's in that closet. So I pull it open. And in that closet is an old lady's walker. Like, what the F is it doing here? Because I thought the prior landlord had gotten rid of all of her mother's stuff. Sure enough, I picked it up, put it back down onto the carpet, and went tap, tap. I was like, what the F? Like, that was the same song that I heard. So I turned around and I basically pretended like I was an old man. And sure enough, it had like the tennis balls on it still. And as you sort of walked like an old person would, you hear it basically scrape as it went along the carpet and then tap, tap as they picked it up and then put it back down. Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I'd move.
Like I said, that was stuff is cool. I want to know more.
So do you believe you've actually come into communication on some level, or at least seen something that you would consider legitimately paranormal?
Oh, hell yeah. I wouldn't be in it for this long if I haven't seen or heard things that I can't explain. I would be an idiot to do it this long. I've heard voices, like just like you and I are talking, when I know I'm alone, let's say. I've heard recordings of voices that were not me and the other investigators in a location that really had no natural explanation for it, like direct responses to questions we were asking. I've seen shadows, for example, that were like human shaped, moving towards me, across my vision. So I've seen enough that I want to be able to explain what is it that I'm seeing. If it's supernatural, how can I basically record it so people don't think I'm nuts? But how can I understand it?
That's
a good question. What's your view on it? I mean, what do you think? I mean, honestly, what's your thoughts on the outer world? You know what I mean?
I like I said, I'm a Catholic, right?
Right.
But yet I've studied every major religion, Luciferianism, Satanism. I mean, you name it. I've gone to the dark and to the light and everything in between. I think there is an afterlife there somewhere. It's just not for me to understand until I actually get there and show up with my suitcase at the pearly gates or wherever I'm going. You know what I mean? Hope I'm not terribly surprised in the worst way. But when it's my time to go, then it's for me to know whatever higher power is out there.
So do you think that the dead interact with the living, like spirits that are maybe possibly out there?
I think so. Like I said, I'm quote the skeptic, which means I'm usually the asshole who has to say, yeah, your video is not real. That's for example, right? But
it's okay, bro. We didn't think so either.
No.
Well, it's real. It's just not what.
Yeah, no, I'm
you're
joking.
saying it's not what we are saying or what most people would consider a paranormal experience.
Right. I look at it as based on my experience. There might be other explanations outside of something
absolutely, and I'm totally good with that. But it is a real video. We did not.
Oh yeah, no. That
on any level.
Right. If it's complete fraud, that's a totally different story. It's not a legit video, but you can interpret it in different ways.
Absolutely.
So anyway, like I said, being the skeptic, I constantly ask questions. So, like for example, if I saw that video and I took it myself at a location, I would say, well, what the hell is that? I don't understand what it is. And so I ask other people, what do you think? And people say, well, I think it's a ghost. Well, why do you think so? Well, I think it's something completely scientific. It's natural. We just misinterpret it as paranormal. Well, why do you think so? And so that's why I look at it as skepticism as simply, I want to dig as deep as I can to know as much as I can before I even say, holy shit, I think that's a ghost, or, whatever it is.
Do you think it's actually current beings of afterlife, or do you think it's like what some people say, like it's almost like a shattered memory of a an bad happening, or if that makes sense. Like, it's not exactly an actual ghost. It's almost like a reflection of a past.
What they call a residual haunt.
Yes, that's it.
I think it's a mixture of both, and this is why. And then Vicki can jump in because, like she has just as much experience as I do. An active haunt. I mean, the vocabulary varies, but essentially, an active spirit that's communicating. For example, if I say, "Why are you here?" and then the answer comes back is in direct response to what I just asked, then I'm thinking it's an intelligent. Someone will call it active haunt, spirit, ghost,
that
whatever.
That would make sense, yeah.
Or for residual, it's like, okay, the lady in white appears in this hallway every Halloween evening on 12 midnight. And you're out there recording stuff, and there she is. If you went any other night, you wouldn't catch her. She might call out, let's say, looking for her long lost love, that she's in eternity trying to find. You might pick that up, let's say, on a recording of audio or, let's say, video. That is what I would call residual. So you have to kind of know what you're looking at before you even start investigating.
Vicki.
Yes.
Is this romantic for you on any level?
Romantic?
Well, I mean, because a lot of people do find this romantic. Let's be honest. Ghost, the movie Ghost.
I think it
was a romance movie, right?
I think it depends
let's not lie. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That was a romantic movie, right? There was romance in that. And so the thought of a ghost could be romantic. I
really think that depends on what your interpretation of that specific word is. Because romanticism is really more about a feeling, an overall overarching sensation about something, regardless of what the topic is. So in some sense, you could probably say that, yeah. Well, I think it...
On some levels, the Dracula story is a romance, right? You know what I mean?
You can break down...
You could break down some dark love stories for sure. Any Given Sin, I'm sure, you know what I mean? What they write about is probably dark, but are romantic on some levels. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I do think that there's a lot of romanticism in the paranormal because I do feel that a lot of people have lost loved ones that they were in a romance with, and they're looking forward to seeing them in the next life. You know what I mean? Would you agree with that?
I don't think that's... Yeah, I could definitely see if you're using romanticism or the word romantic in that sense, where someone is romanticizing the thought of what the afterlife is about. It's a carrying on of love. It's a carrying on of, transcending, love that passes through time, all that kind of stuff. So you could certainly romanticize it in that fashion. I think it really just depends on specifically what you're talking about as far as the relationship or connection between the living in this presence person and the soul or ghost or whatever in the next realm. So I think there's a connection between them, and you could romanticize that.
In your opinion, do you believe that there is a relationship there, or there could be, like between the living and the dead?
I think there's always a relationship because it really, it kind of breaks down to what your feelings or thoughts or processes are about the idea of the afterlife. I think for most of us, at least most of us that do what we do, it really does talk more about the change of energy and the transition of energy. They always say, like, just in science, you cannot destroy energy. So it has to go somewhere. We've had some interesting guests on our show that talk a lot about energy transfer and the science of being able to find that. So there's always a connection between our world and the next. And it's really about your specific connection with the place, the person, whoever you're looking for, whatever it might be.
Is there merit to, like, are there people who are, I don't know, like, I guess the idea of psychics or mediums or people are there people who are more susceptible to seeing stuff, or is it stuff that can be developed?
I think it's both, really. I think most of us have some, even if it's minute, some piece of a gift. We've had, again, on our show, a lot of conversations with various psychics and mediums and things like that. And that's something that I personally have a little piece of, and we've talked about a lot on our show, and I've talked about in the past. But you can develop it too. I feel like everybody has a little piece of that, and you have to learn to recognize it and develop it and work with it and sort of turn your intuitions into something more specific.
Yeah.
And how you interpret energy. I mean, any person that goes into a haunted location, whether it may be haunted or not, we all walk in there. Most of us will feel something. So whether it's just that little bit of crawl up the back of your neck where you feel like something's watching you, all of those little pieces of information that hit you, everybody interprets it differently. Some people may recognize it. Some people may not. It might be so subtle that you don't even know what it is, so it doesn't cross your mind. So I don't know that psychic mediums, true ones, have any different gifts. They just are much better at using them.
Got you. So it's not exactly like, oh, I'm sensing something, you know, your lotto numbers are and bop, you know?
Oh, I wish.
I know, right? That was always my question. Like, if you're psychic, tell me it so I can make some money. We can chill this. But
I think that's against the code or something.
Yeah, Hippocratic Oath for psychics.
It's in the handbook. Well, I mean, you strike me as a guy that absolutely believes, but also is skeptical to a certain degree and wants to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, almost like very scientific in thought. Like, I'll believe it if I don't prove it wrong, but I want to prove it wrong first.
Yeah, I mean, that also is on my background. Like, my educational background is in clinical psychology.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so I come from it as looking at it. So what do you get out of this experience? How is this meaningful for you? And it's interesting reading how people react to investigating something or being involved with or experiencing paranormal phenomena. I find that stuff fascinating. I also have a background in law enforcement. So when I go into cases, I look at it as a detective. What clues do you have? What other sort of clues can we, what can we gather and what can we basically conclude from what we have? And then basically I kind of stop it there and saying, based on what I can see and what I have collected in front of me, this is the assertion that I can make. This is my final conclusion. I can't go really any further. So you're right. I do kind of take things as a kind of a clinical scientific kind of edge to it. That's just like I said.
That's not a bad thing.
No, I think that I was bringing that up. Yeah,
it's not a bad thing, and I have to sort of like almost like over-explain myself to other people.
No, you don't have to actually. That's what I was going to tell you. Is you don't need to, dude. It's like what you're doing is a part of how we, you know what I mean? We figure it out. Yeah. If that video that I shot, you know, but look at, because the guys tell me, oh my God, it's real. You know what I mean? If that video was complete bullshit and nothing but some explainable thing, it doesn't really bother me. I'm not looking for that. But on a personal level, do you believe on a serious level that there is an afterlife? There is absolutely.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Because if I didn't, then investigating the paranormal field, especially ghosts, would be a waste of time. Yeah, it might be fun. Let's say if Vicki and I decided this Saturday, if there wasn't the phenomenology convention, let's go hunt ghosts. She and I would be spending time with each other and having a great time. But if you've already disproved the conclusion, what is the point in doing the investigation? Is the way I look at it.
Yeah,
like with psychics, Cody, you'd mentioned about like psychics and mediums. Mm-hmm. They can go into a location saying, oh, I'm talking to, and list off 5 people, let's say people, quote unquote, that they're talking to. I could go in with a bunch of scientific equipment wanting to basically augment my senses and saying, I got nothing.
Right.
So for me, it's a boring night. But for the psychic, they might say, oh, geez, I had a great night. Awesome conversations, and I crossed a few over because I wanted to go into the light. And I just shake my head like,
if you say so,
take your word for it.
Yeah. But I dig that though, because like you just said, that it says a lot to the overall subject, because you go at it with a very skeptical mind. You don't go in saying it's not true. You'll go tell me, but you got to convince me. And the fact that you're still doing it is like, well, you've seen some shit then, because you wouldn't, like you said, you're not going to sit there and try to prove Iron Man's real. We kind of know it was made up by Marvel. You know, there's no reason for it.
Right. Wait a minute. It's not real?
Shit. Spoilers, brother. Spoilers.
Oh, I need to stop drinking right now.
My bad. No, just drink more. You'll forget about it.
Damn.
But
cool.
Vicki, did you have any crazy paranormal experience that got you down that path, or was it just something like Eric that is just something been around you the whole time?
I don't recall having any specific experiences that got me interested in the paranormal. I think I've always kind of just had an interest in it. Just from a young age. I've always enjoyed things in that realm, as most teenagers do, you know. But I picked it up doing like making homemade Ouija boards and things like that. And you know, it started off as fun, but the more I read about it, the more I watched around it. I've always, and I don't consider myself to be psychic or anything like that, but I've always had, like, I don't want to say prophetic, but psychic dreams and things like that that come true.
Right.
So that's always been kind of an interest to me. So that's always kind of kept me going and getting into it. And I kind of fell into it by accident more than anything. When I joined the group that I was with previously, I started as just doing voiceover work for the films they were making.
Oh, okay.
And I did enough of them that they finally said, well, do you want to come, you know, hang out and do this? And I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. And it pulled me in. It's been, gosh, like 10 years now. But it's so much fun. And there's always something that you find that happens, and it's just enough to keep you coming back.
You've never had an experience?
Not personally. Now, I mean, since I started investigating, I've had lots of experiences. But I chalk those up to the investigations we were doing, the places we were, but I've not had something personal, you know, like in my home, like Eric was talking about. I've not had that happen.
Yeah, you're talking more on like a hunt.
When I go places. Yeah.
Well, I can't avoid this next question because it's so freaking obvious. Your background says a story. What's going on there? What's up with all those guitars?
All of this?
Yeah.
Rob beat me to it. I was like, that's a nice bass.
My husband is a musician, and he also builds instruments. So,
oh, really?
See, that one right there is an original one of the ones he built, and there's one above it that you probably can't see. So both of those are Rickett custom guitars that he's built. So he's done a lot of cool stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so this is our studio. So he records in here, and then I do my show in here. So this is the studio.
Okay, so let's give him some props. How can people find out?
Sure, it's Rickett Custom Guitars. So you can find us online, on Facebook, all that good stuff.
Very cool.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's get in.
He does good work.
Huh?
I said he does good work.
No, he's absolutely right. I was looking up those while he was thinking the exact same thing I was right when you turned on the camera. I was like, ooh, I'm like, I'll try. Let's get into your guys' show real quick. When we were on your show, and if you guys didn't listen to us on your show, fix your life. But if you when we were on your guys' show, you guys made a point of saying that we were going to be the lighter side of your show. How dark do you guys get?
I don't think there's really any limit, is there, Vicki?
No.
Because Ralph killed a guy with his bare hands, so we know dark.
So we have a fascination with stories and news articles and things that we find, serial killers. Eric finds some of the craziest stories from literally around the world and spanning the time and globe, of people that do some really nasty things.
Good Lord.
So, yeah. Cannibalism is probably the #1 topic on our show.
Cannibalism? Holy Lord.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Florida does not hold all of the crazy, although there's a lot down there.
Are you guys into the whole serial killer thing? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. We've had some really interesting guests on our show that study the serial killers and write books about it. And I don't know, this is so fascinating. And with Eric's background in psychology, that's the biggest part of what we talk about, is just the psychology of crazy and how these people do these things and, you know, what leads them to it. And, you know, then he analyzes it and we debate, and it's always fun and interesting.
Eric, would you consider yourself an expert on serial killers?
Oh, heck no. I don't have enough letters after my name, you know, like alphabet soup or playing Scrabble to call myself the least bit of an expert. I've read about them for the last, I'm showing my age, 30 plus years now. So I may be an armchair amateur expert. How's that? Does that work?
Well, that works, but I do want to know, who's your favorite?
My favorite serial killer. You know,
I think I just found the title for the podcast.
The Kansas City Butcher.
The Kansas City Butcher.
Kansas City.
What did he do?
Yeah, Robert Berdella. Yeah, read that one. That's one of the first ones that I studied as I was a teenager. I think I was a junior in high school, and I got that book at the library, and I said, "Damn, this stuff is awesome." So yeah, if you have to Google it, Robert Berdella, the Kansas City Butcher. That is one of the creepiest stories you'll ever read.
Really? Did he do anything that you can talk about specifically?
Well, considering we dropped a few F-bombs, I think pretty much everything's on.
The F-bombs are cool here. Bro.
Yeah, F-bombs are cool, but nothing left.
So this guy basically ran a thrift shop of like occult and bizarre stuff. And then he also would pick up gay men who were, let's say, involved in drugs. They might have been homeless and said, "Oh, I can give you a place to stay. We can do some drugs, drink. Not a problem." Well, then what he would do is he would attack them once they get into the house. He would basically tie them up, and he would torture them. So, for example, he would inject, let's say, drain cleaner into their voice box, into their Adam's apple to silence them. He'd put bleach in their eyes to blind them. He would shock them with basically a homemade, essentially, think of a car battery like you've seen like in torture movies, car battery with some electrodes to the taint, basically. And then he basically kept a whole journal and said, this is called a CF, basically what he called a cucumber fuck, which basically he would sodomize his victims with a cucumber and then take pictures. To me, I'm like munching on a sandwich going, "Wow, this shit's fascinating." And the joke was like when I was in college, and it still stands today, is I'm on some FBI watch list for sure, right?
I can't say I blame him.
Exactly, that van that's right outside of the house, right? But yeah, like I said, like just reading the detail of that stuff, I just love it. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the son of Sam? The only reason I bring him up, bro, is because I'm from the Bronx, and that's
right. That was a stomping ground.
Yeah, exactly.
No, David Berkowitz to this day claims that he was not the only guy, because if you look at the composite sketches that people who witnessed the murders, they're very different than what he actually looks like. He claimed he was part of a satanic church, and as part of their practice, they all carried out the various murders. So, based off of what I've read, it has a lot of merit to that, to that thought.
You think that?
Have you seen the new Netflix documentary on that?
Not yet. Like I said,
yeah, because it's called Sons of Sam, isn't it?
Watch.
It's like plural sons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You think there's merit to that idea?
Yes, I do. I believe he committed several murders, but I think there were also accomplices that committed some of the others.
Interesting. Do you guys like 9 Inch Nails at all?
Absolutely. I have my head in the hole.
Well, no, I just wondered, what do you think about Trent Reznor's decision to record his album where, the famed spot where everyone was massacred? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that was something that he should have done, or you think he's playing around with stuff that he shouldn't be playing with? I mean, on a second level, I'd like to ask you guys, what do you think about that? Do you think that people should be messing around with that kind of stuff, like Ouija boards and shit like that? It's a whole other question.
Where did he record the album? Because I don't know where he recorded the album than where you're talking about.
Well, I mean, you've heard of the story of the actress's name is
Sharon
escaping me right now. Sharon Tate.
Oh, that's right.
The Manson murders.
Yeah,
yes, the Manson murders.
Okay.
So you've heard of that story. So that's where he went supposedly to record his album, and I can't remember which album it was. I think it was the one after Broken. That was just like a demo or something that he did. But anyways, the point is he decided to go there, and I think he worked with Marilyn Manson at that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what do you think about that? Do you think that's something that, that people should mess with? Or do you think that that's something that should be held sacred, like Ouija boards and stuff like that?
Go ahead, Vicki. Jump right in.
I mean, I think it really depends on your opinion of locations like that. So there's a certain amount of sort of respect that some people will assume that type of location deserves just because so many people were killed there. Now, whether that's something that matters to someone else, it's certainly an interesting spot and it's a great attention getter, and it's great for media and all of those types of things, and it makes it interesting. So if somebody really wanted to put forth a really dark vibe and, you know, they're so edgy and they did it this way, what better place to do it at than something like that? So, you know, I think it just really depends on your specific personal feelings for a space like that. Obviously, it's just a house. A lot of bad things happen there. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily haunted by, you know, Sharon Tate or any of the other people. So it's just a matter of sort of your take on it. It's certainly, you know, it's kind of kitschy. It's kind of cool.
And
we can definitely have a whole different conversation about Ouija boards if you want.
I was just going to say, do we really hold something made by Mattel sacred?
I am a big fan of Ouija boards, to be honest with you. Something about a spirit board, and it's long before Mattel. So the first ones were done in the ones that were created and became the classic game style were right out of Baltimore. They were made there. But before that, there was tons of spirit boards and tons of ways of doing it. And it's just another form of communication. So if you treat it that way, and that's how you look at it, then that's the response you're going to get from it. A lot of people, you know, will tell you that a Ouija board is evil and you're going to let spirits in and all this bad things. Well, anytime you try to interact with the other side, if what you believe is happening is interaction, is conversation, is whatever, then you're opening yourself up to that anyway. So it really doesn't matter what specific form of communication you use. It's really not any different.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense, because if you're going to do any kind of seance or anything like that, they always say, you know, you have to be open, you have to be available to the experience. And I guess it doesn't matter if you pick up a toy, if you're putting yourself into that state. Yeah, that is kind of dangerous. Well, crap, now my wife's going to give me an I told you so. Because
well, I mean, it really is like one of the most popular things when it comes to, you know, the paranormal or afterlife, ghosts and shit like that. Everybody's like Ouija board, you know, and everybody goes to the one of the most famous movies of all time, The Exorcist. You know what I mean? Where that was basically the thing that they suggested started what happened. I
gotta tell you,
I don't know.
You gotta check out. So there's a guy that does he's like the historian on Ouija boards, him and a partner of his. And he was at the Haunted Board Society, I think it's what it's called. Eric?
Yeah.
For merch. Yeah. So Robert Merch. Yeah. And his partner, they have this like the biggest collection of Ouija boards and spirit boards and all of that you've ever seen. And some of them are really, really cool and like really old, and they look so different than what you see from, you know, what you buy from Mattel or whatever.
Yeah.
But they have stories, and they have a whole, you know, set of history that they tell. And it's actually all really interesting and cool to look at.
What's the difference between a Ouija board and a spirit board?
The name that was created by Mattel.
Oh, really? It's just a branding thing. See, I'm not even gonna lie. I just thought it was something that a toy company developed and was like, it's spooky. Kids will have fun with it.
No, and I don't know, and maybe Eric knows a little bit more about the history, but somewhere the spirit board kind of transformed into what you can buy on a toy shelf now, but it goes way, way, way back.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if you believe in ghosts and you believe in spirits, I guess, you know, if you want to communicate, because a lot of people, that's what gets them into it, right? Mm-hmm. They have someone that's close to them pass away, and they want to see if they can communicate. What do you guys think about the topic of animals? Do you guys think that is that even a possibility for an animal to have a spirit? And
I don't think so. Personally, I don't.
You don't? Okay. What do you think?
I think so.
You think so?
So I do and so I've had, this is going to sound really crazy. So I went to 2 different psychics that I've seen in my days. One time we went with some friends to go see a psychic over in Baltimore. It was just supposed to be a fun trip kind of thing. It's kind of weird. And when I was having my session with her, she asked if I had any questions. And I said, so what happens to your animals, your dogs, when they pass over? And she's like, you know, well, have you lost one recently? And I said, yes. And so she said, what was the animal's name? And I said, the animal's name And then she proceeded to describe her to me and say, oh, so she's like a medium, black and brown, German Shepherd, kind of small build. She just came and sat beside you when you called her name. And this was a long time ago. This was before Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So it's not as though somebody would have known or had the opportunity to look up anything. So that right there, and I know it sounds crazy, but that right there sealed that deal for me. Like, I really do believe that there is a spirit realm for that energy as well as other energy.
I tend to agree with Vicki on that, because for me, my brain just goes, if I'm going to believe that there's an afterlife for every human that ever existed, then how come dogs aren't allowed either? You know, or, you know, how come Russ is not allowed? Yeah, it's like, yeah, get now cats, fuck cats, get them out of here. Sorry, Ralph, not into it. Cats are our dogs are welcome.
Fuck you, dude.
Like you say, here's one for now, and put this one in your pocket.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly. My cat will scratch your eyeball out, bro.
Dude, I know. She scratches your eyeball out.
Satan cat.
Satan cat.
That motherfucker's from the Bronx.
Oh, my gosh. No.
Or maybe from Boston.
Mm-hmm. Right? I'm proud to be a masshole.
No, that's fucking awesome.
But go ahead, Ralph. Sorry.
No, go ahead, dude.
Oh, I was going to say, to the actual, back to the haunting part, what causes a haunting then? If it's not like a terrible thing, like the Manson murders that wouldn't tear it there, like, is it the spirit's decision? Is it, I mean, am I asking a right question? Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my opinion, I really think that what goes back to the transfer of energy, I believe that this gets really weird sounding. So there's, energy is on different planes. And I feel like if there's a spirit or ghost or person that has passed, I feel like that energy has the ability, sometimes, not always, but depending on maybe their want or need for it, can sort of peek into our, past the veil or whatever. So they can kind of peek back and forth. So I don't think there necessarily has to be a bad event or something evil or bad to have happened in order for a place to be. And I hate the word haunted is kind of a very specific connotation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it's
that
like
automatically
negative.
Makes you think something bad has happened and now they're hanging around. Well, I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that they have the ability to pop in and check on you. I feel like every now and then my dad pops in. So, I don't think it's specifically related to certain types of happenings.
So it's almost like a just another plane of existence that they're able to access that we're not, and we're not really able to, to just
That's
perceive.
how I look at it.
Yeah.
But I think if you asked 100 people, you'd have, 89 different opinions.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Do you think there's anything connected to religion with the paranormal experience? Do you think it's possibly something that God or the devil have, some hold over? Because I know there's people that do believe that ghosts and demons could be easily, confused for each other. I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
so what are your thoughts?
That's a big depends. And I'm not talking about the adult diapers. It all depends on your religious background. Even like when I worked in clinical psychology, we took an entire course on what other cultures considered mental illness. And some people consider mental illness means you're possessed by evil spirits. And so the same thing with ghosts. Like, for example, there are some fundamentalist Christians, let's say, and again, I'm not mocking anyone's religious upbringing. They would say that even trying to communicate with a ghost means that you're in league with the devil, and you really shouldn't. So even the thought of communicating with spirits, trying to detect them, talk to them, whatever, record them, some groups would say that you're basically treading on very dangerous ground and probably shouldn't. I think pretty much every religious group has some idea of an afterlife that's beneficial, whether it's heaven, the great summerland, wherever. And there's a not so nice place for some people who just didn't do very nice, whether that's hell or anywhere else. And then, like I said, other groups just have the afterlife in general, not to get into all the minutia, but I think your thoughts about the afterlife, I think, is absolutely shaped by your religious upbringing.
Okay, right on. So since you grew up in Boston, so close to Salem. What are your thoughts on the witch trials and all that stuff? And I mean, is that on any level related, do you think? I mean, were they practicing some kind of, do you think, in your opinion, were they practicing some kind of occult type practice where they were trying to get, reach the devil?
No, I think you had a lot of rich, white, fundamentalist Protestant people in power who basically wanted to oppress the women. And and any other man that tried to defend them was lumped into the same pile and basically oppressed and persecuted and murdered as quote witches. You can, if you took that scenario, that you could say is also happening today. You know what I mean? Just the same scenario, but just change the names. Did some, let's say, African slaves that talk about, like, for example, Tituba, who brought some of her West African beliefs to the people that she took care of, that was basically African folk medicine. And so, it's not Catholic, it's not Protestant, it's unchristian, it must be in league of the devil. Again, that's just being blatantly racist. Not the fact that she was also a slave, but the fact that it was essentially, that's racist, stamp it out, can't have it, goodbye. Horrible thing. Hopefully, I'm guessing we're not going to have to do it again, but like I said, there might be some other group out there someday, like even like Falun Gong in China, people who are being prosecuted for wanting to do something different.
Very interesting point, Eric. Very interesting point. Well, what are your thoughts on that, Vicki? Do you have anything that stands out above what Eric just said, or no?
No, I mean, I would follow on the same thinking. During that time, they were just persecuted for whatever differences they needed to be persecuted for, according to those folks. You might have had a handful of people that practiced some sort of different religion that was then interpreted as, being a witch. But I mean, obviously the Wiccan religion is a thing. And, there's real people that follow that style of religion that probably would have been burned at the stake then too. So, yeah.
So anyone who didn't follow the Christian belief system, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Don't talk about like the ultimate cancel culture, bro. It's like, oh, this person, I think she stole my loaf of bread. I think she's a witch. Burn her. We're not even going to ask through it,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Which just shows the worst of humanity as well, because it's like some people might have actually thought, oh, yeah, they're witches, but a lot of people were just like, fuck it, it's an easy out. Just get rid of my enemies and move on with it. That's jacked up, dude.
And the other thing, too, to just jump on the point you just made, is that if you were not whole hog going, yes, I will drink the Kool-Aid, absolutely, they need to be burnt at the stake, then you were like, oh, you must be in league with the devil, too. You're supporting them.
You're a sympathizer, yeah.
So, bam, we get a separate fire just for you.
Crazy, huh? Do you think that maybe we're like heading towards something like that again in the future?
I hope and pray not.
Same. But do you honestly think it could be a possibility?
Oh, God. Here I am almost praying to God. I'm not sure if it'll be religious. I think it'll be more political and political thought that'll be the driver on this one, not necessarily religious upbringing.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things that fascinates me about religions that say that the paranormal is bad, I never have really been able to understand how you can have belief system in one and not have it incorporate the other. Just because generally speaking, the whole setup of religion is about what happens after you die. That is the entire thing. Yeah. So I don't see how that doesn't connect, but yet you have some folks that in their religion, it's sacrilegious to talk about ghosts and anything paranormal. So that's always been fascinating to me, just how the two can combine and the disconnect between them for several people. Me personally, I tend to be a little more agnostic probably. I certainly have a belief system. I can't ever really put my finger on it because it's been changing my whole life. Growing up, my mother she grew up as a Baptist, and she decided, because she's had such a hard, strict Southern Baptist upbringing, that when she had, as I was coming up, she was not going to force any particular religion on me, whereas my dad was very Catholic. So that's sort of the whole opposite. So I was fortunate enough to spend time with people of varying religions and sort of extracted all of the things from all of them that made sense to me. So I don't consider myself to be any one particular denomination, just a little bit of everything. So
what are your thoughts about reincarnation?
It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Is it really?
I do. I really do. It's so funny. I just had a conversation with somebody on Facebook about that today. So we've had some really interesting guests on our show that have had, reincarnation experiences, or they've compiled a lot of those experiences from other people. And it's fascinating to me. And there's a piece of me that definitely thinks that there's an opportunity for us to try it again, and whether that be just an interesting, romanticized way to look at your life, that if I screw it up this time, then I'll probably get another shot at it. But, there's been times in my life where I've kind of come to believe that, I think I've been here once or twice. So I don't know. It's interesting to me. I love it.
What do you think, Eric? Is it on any level related to the afterlife?
I think so. Like religion-wise, like I said, I've had my religious journey, and right now I'm practicing Catholic. But like I said, for the last 30 years, I've studied, everything on is what they call the left-hand path, like all the, the dark stuff, Satanism, Luciferianism, Wicca. I mean, you name it, black witchcraft. Like I said, you name it, I've studied it. With reincarnation, that's an interesting one, because I actually have someone that I'm married to that claims to be reincarnated. So
really?
When I sort of gave my skeptical view, I got the the stabby death stare. So I said, okay, maybe I should backpedal a little bit on this one. Like I said, I'm open to the thought of reincarnation. It's I believe a Buddhist, or right? Yes. Is it Buddhist?
Yeah. My wife is Buddhist, so she believes in reincarnation.
Just want to make sure at least I'm quoting.
So I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Right. And it's an interesting concept. It's a beautiful concept. But what I come to trouble with is it for everybody, or is it just if you follow Buddhism, then you're kind of like in the line now to be reincarnated? That's the weird thing about religion is man's relationship with the divine has been since people have stepped on the earth. Let's say if you believe in a higher power, whereas organized religion is essentially man-made. So it would be nice if reincarnation, if that was a true thing in the cosmos, that it would be open and available to everyone, not just necessarily if you believe in Buddhism.
It's kind of nice way to think about it, where like you go in and say, hey, I went through this life, I go up into whatever the ooze of consciousness that's on the other plane. And then you go, you know what? I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go back down and do it again. And it's kind of like a vacation spot. You're like, I'm going to go reincarnate now.
Have you seen the movie Soul?
No.
Yes.
No. Yeah, okay. So I advise you. It's a great movie. It's an animated picture, but it's basically about reincarnation. The whole entire movie. Soul.
The Pixar movie, right?
Yeah, it's a Pixar movie. It's fantastic. It's so well done, and it's got music and all kinds of great things. But the whole premise is the ability to, wait your turn, and you might have to come back and do it again. So it's just an interesting take on reincarnation as a concept.
Yeah.
And it's very emotional and talks about learning the things you're supposed to learn and taking risks and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a great movie.
Yeah. From what I understand, there's a lot of similarities with Buddhism and Christianity, to be honest, because I believe that their belief system is based on your deeds in life. That's what you're facing. You know what I mean? In the future with reincarnation. So, you know what I mean? If you're a total asshole, you're going to end up a cockroach. You know what I mean? And somebody like Eric or myself from the East Coast are going to stomp you in the corner. And that's going to be the end of it. You know what I'm saying? But if you were a good person, a truly good person, then you're looking forward to a higher level. You know what I mean? So, yeah, on that level, it's definitely.
Well, you know more about this than I do, Ralph. Is it you start off? Well, I mean, because of Lisa, you're more familiar with it than I am.
Well,
is it based on your deeds, or is it you start at a lower level, like you start as a cockroach and you go, I learned what I needed to do as a cockroach, and then now we've escalated to humanity where you've made it to being a human. Now learn your shit here. I always thought that's what it was. I didn't know it was. I
have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Lisa? I think most people will tell you. At least and Eric might be able to remember this as well. I don't think there's, at least in my perception of the conversations I've had about it, humans are always human. Animals are always animal. Like there's no transition from one to the next. So it's a different consciousness.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. So no matter what, you're just going to come back as a human all the time.
Yeah. So you might be a different person, but until you've learned all your lessons, done all your deeds, whatever it might be, whatever the thing is that makes you move on to the next level.
Right.
Right. I got you. So instead of a cockroach, you come back as a crackhead, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool.
Something
Very
like
cool.
that. Yeah. Okay. Well, where do you guys stand on like exorcisms? Have you had any experience around that?
Eric, I'm gonna let you take that one.
Yeah, Eric, come on.
Well, we talk about exorcism. You're talking about the rite by the Catholic Church, right? So that's traditionally when you talk about like the Exorcist movie, that's what you're talking about. People use that term interchangeably. Fundamentalist Christians will say, I'm driving out demons, I'm banishing them. They use other sort of code words. What they're doing is what they call a prayer of deliverance, which is kind of like exorcism light, so to speak. It's, I guess, who am I, to judge? But again, when you see very flamboyant people in the paranormal field says, I am here to cast out demons, and they whip out their Bible and it's stop. You know what I mean? Just please stop.
So you don't believe there's any merit to it at all, or you don't think the big theatrical ones are real?
No, I think the big theatrical ones are not real.
Gotcha.
I mean, again, coming from a clinical psychology background, I think most of those people have just severe mental illness. And most of them need a good psychiatrist. Is exorcism real? So can people be possessed by demons? Like I said, I can't tell you definitively no, but I think I'm open to the fact that could be correct. The percentage of people who claim to be possessed or people who help people who say you are possessed, I think it's more like 99% nah and 1% maybe.
So
you said you were practicing Catholic. So in your opinion, do you think the Catholic organization as a whole, do you think that because there's a lot of movies out there that say, suggest that they're going to, if enough pressure is put on them, they're going to, look into it and see if it's legit or whatever. Do you think that they truly believe that it's a possibility, or do you think it's just something that they follow based on what they have to do?
Well, again, when you think about, let's say, modern medicine, like people, like, let's say, for example, if you had like a seizure disorder, you had epilepsy, they would have thought you were possessed by the devil hundreds of years ago and you needed an exorcism.
Right.
Now that we understand, no, that's a neurological disorder. And so I think in modern day, they'll say, have you seen a doctor recently? Have you talked with a mental health professional? And then if you're still troubled, it's almost like pastoral counseling before they really get down to okay, it's not mental illness. It's not something physically wrong with you. Maybe after talking with, let's say, a priest, now there might be something else. But you have to go through a pretty severe filtering process. The Catholic Church will tell you that Lucifer and the devil and his minions and his evil powers, his temptation is everywhere. Because again, he tempts us to, like, for example, substance abuse, gambling, violence, racism, all the garbage that goes on in the world that affects people in a negative way. They'll say that's the devil's temptation.
Right.
And being a good, grounded person is like your protection against falling over into the abyss. So the Catholic Church, like I said, the devil is like the greatest promotional tool ever. That's advertising genius. But again, when you talk about exorcism, the amount of exorcisms that they actually perform are so small based when you compare it to all the ones that are out there, I'll say, in popular culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
totally.
it totally makes sense. On an offshoot side note, do you believe in hell, Eric?
No, I think hell is a state of mind, and hell is like the absence of God's love. So,
agreed.
Again, when people die, again, being a Catholic, I'm supposed to go to the pearly gates unless I've sinned, and then I'm going to purgatory, and then eventually figure it out where I'm going. But truly, what I think of hell is like almost like in Buddhism, like where you can sort of like learn how to do things better. I believe there's like a state of consciousness called purgatory, where you can, as you say, figure your shit out and saying, hey, by the way, you did these things great, but you really fucked up all this other stuff. You better straighten this shit out. so you can go to the better place. There might be that dumping ground that I just don't know about yet for all the people that just say, fuck it, I'm just still going to be an asshole, and put them there for eternity. If that's possible, like I said, if I ever find out, I'll let you guys know first. But again, like, who's going to return saying, you know what, this shit's real?
Vicki, what do you think? Do you believe in hell?
I'll be honest, I don't know. That's a tough one because my belief systems are so sort of confused, to be honest with you. There's so many different bits and pieces. I don't know. I think I'd like to think of it as a different place of consciousness. So if you spend your life miserable and you die guilty, feeling guilty about things, then that carries through with your consciousness. And it's almost like a purgatory that you create for yourself. And I think, conversely, the same thing with heaven. I don't know that there's necessarily a place, but, I think there's a place where you're happy and you have a view of things that you didn't have when you were on Earth. That's one of the things I think that I find interesting about the idea of passing through into the next realm, whatever you want to call that, is that view of things that you didn't see when you were on this side of it. So there's this whole sort of thought process that when you're on the other side, you see everything, you become part of the general consciousness, and you have ownership and thought of things you never had while you were here. So you see the whole picture. And I think if someone spent their life being miserable and died guilty and whatever it might be, then their view is tainted directly by that. So it's sort of a self-created place of purgatory.
Yeah. Makes sense. If your filter is nothing but crap, how are you going to see any part of heaven ever?
Right.
If you're not even looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of questions. I was just trying to run my brain. Literally, I'm trying to run my, because I want to keep going. I'm like, I got other stuff.
Great. Yeah.
So I had something I wanted to share.
Okay.
So when you guys were on our show, and I'm not sure if it was Ralph or Cody that mentioned The Shining being like your favorite horror movie.
I meant it's my favorite horror movie.
All right. Yes. So I just have to, just because it's fun and I've been there, I don't know if you've ever been to the actual hotel that whole story was created from, but I got to spend a week there.
Wow.
In 2011, and we filmed a documentary at the Stanley Hotel. And that place is the most fascinating place I think I've ever been. Absolutely fell in love with it, but we had some really cool experiences while we were there. And the hotel is beautiful, and like they've got the topiaries living again and all of that's out there. It's a very, very cool spot.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, yeah. So you said you guys filmed the documentary, right?
Yeah. So this is with a group that I used to be with. We went out there for a week and filmed a documentary out there just about all of the different haunted rooms. So we got to stay and rotate through all of the haunted rooms. It's like the most famous one. So the one that Stephen King stayed in when he was inspired to write the book. So we're going to stay in that room. We did some investigations in the Lord Belvedere's room. I had a hand reach out at me on camera. That was really cool.
What?
So we had a lot of cool stuff going on there. It was fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Right on. Well, we're definitely going to need to have you back on. I think that's super interesting that you visited that, because absolutely it is my favorite horror movie for a lot of reasons. And I mean, I think most people don't really even consider it a horror movie. You know what I mean? Because it's not really any monsters per se, but they're out there in the middle of nowhere, completely isolated, and you can totally see why the guy would lose his mind. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it made sense. The movie builds up in such a great way that I just can't, I've never found a sequel. I mean, I would say that The Exorcist is another movie that really haunts you, in my opinion. That's one of the first movies that I ever saw that really scared the shit out of me. And I can't say that any movie has since then, to be honest with you. So there's something special about The Exorcist for sure.
Both of those movies still hold up after all these years. Yeah. They're just as scary and interesting and well shot now as they were 30 years ago when they were done. The only one that I think, and we can have a whole horror movie conversation, but The Conjuring is my favorite current
Conjuring.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's
My
awesome.
wife and I are
Like,
watching that
had
entire
my kids
series.
playing hide and clap in the house. You know what I mean? Like, it was great.
Oh.
Aren't they coming out with another one pretty quick here?
Yeah, like next week.
And actually, I mean, you know, sequels tend to go in funky places, but it still looks like fun. So yeah, that one comes out, I think, in a couple weeks.
Yeah, my wife is making me watch the whole series because of that. She knows I'm a big scaredy cat. So we've literally been watching The Conjuring over the last like week. And so far of that whole series,
Are
the
you watching
first
it
one.
in parts?
Uh-huh. No, the whole like the Conjuring, Conjuring
the
2,
whole series?
Annabelle, yeah, all of them. And the first Conjuring is by far my favorite. I thought the same thing. I'm like, it holds up. I even told her I equated it to The Exorcist in that way. I'm like, it just felt like a good, it was really good that way. I enjoyed that.
It's legit.
What do you guys think of Ed and Lorraine? Their stories are crazy.
So the cool thing about that is in our circle, and I'm sure Eric can also comment on this. So in our circle, we have connections to that group of people. So although I have not had the pleasure of ever having met them, because Lorraine just passed, was it about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
Yep.
She just recently passed away, but her nephew, John Zaffis, is sort of known as the godfather of the paranormal around our circle. And his mother was the twin of Lorraine, right? So he carries a haunted museum of a lot of the stuff that they collected. So he has a lot of their objects, and the real Annabelle, he has that.
Oh, he has her. Okay.
Yeah. So you can get a lot of the stories from him directly. He's been on investigations with them and stuff. So it's interesting that once you're in this community, the reaching and crossover stuff that you get to learn and see people at conventions and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's insane. Have you been to the museum? Have you seen any of the stuff?
I have not. He posts pictures of it and stuff like that. I have not personally seen. I don't know if Eric has had an opportunity to see any of that.
No, I think the original one was in Connecticut, I think, and he just moved it to a spot, I think, in Western Mass. I was at about three years ago. Yeah,
because he was having some flooding issues, and then they moved, and yeah.
Yeah, I have not been to the new location. No. It's some cool stuff. Like they say, don't touch anything. I'd be that guy going, touch.
Yeah, that was just watching the movie. I told my wife that. I said, if it's that haunted, you're just going to have it on a bookshelf and be like, I trust you. You're cool. Like, nah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, all the good stuff I think is enclosed in glass. So.
Yeah, that's true. It's probably strategically placed. It's like, just put a teddy bear up there and tell them not to touch it so they can poke it and feel good about themselves.
Right. Get it all out on that one.
Yeah.
Well, do you feel that there's like something to the thought that a spirit or entity could be encased in some kind of, object, whether it's a scarf or a hat or, whatever, a chair, you know what I mean? Do you guys believe in that kind of thing? Do you believe that could be something? Because I've had people tell me that they picked up stuff off the side of the road and then they had to throw it away later because they were getting like haunted at night. They were hearing voices and seeing things. And I had somebody actually tell me once that they picked up a hat. This is a true story. They told me this. I don't know, they could have been full of shit, but they told me straight up. They found a hat one time. They liked it. They picked it up. It was on the side of the fucking dumpster. And they wore it and they took it home with them. And they started hearing noises at night. They started seeing things. And so they got freaked out and they took the hat and they said, you know what? Maybe this has something connected to that's evil. So they threw it away. And this person swore up and down to me that when they went back home, the hat was right there, sitting there. So, you know what I mean? And what am I supposed to say to this person? I personally did not believe that he was telling me the truth, but you know what I mean? It's no different than the video, right, Eric?
Well, when you think about how a spirit, let's say, could possess a hat or be trapped within a hat, I would say I have no hypothesis to even explain how that could even be possible.
So you think it's bullshit?
No, I wouldn't say bullshit because obviously the things that happened, right? So that's not bullshit. I would say the explanation for how it possibly could have happened, not necessarily that the spirit was trapped within a hat or within a doll or whatever. Perhaps a spirit that, let's say, really liked that hat, had some kind of connection to that hat, followed your friend home because you now have the hat that he or she liked. And then so the activity is just caused by the spirit haunting the area around your friend. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I look at it. That's something that I could I was going to say, pun intended, hang my hat on, but like that's something that to me seems more plausible than a spirit like infecting a doll or a hat.
So it's not necessarily them infecting the hat; it's them hanging around the hat because they really like it.
Yeah, it's their attachment to the object that then transfers. Oh, I see you got my favorite hat. I'm gonna follow you home and see what's going on.
Right. Well, I mean, that's The Conjuring, right? The main thing, and they made the other movie about it. What was it called? Annabelle?
Yeah, Annabelle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was based on that doll having some kind of spirit or something, right? Was it multiple spirits? I don't even remember. You guys are fans of the movie, so maybe you could tell me.
I think it was one spirit, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Again, when you separate truth from what Hollywood did to it, that's where it gets a little murky.
Is there a truth behind that story?
Yeah.
Very little, but there is some truth there.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. Cool.
I think they should have kept her a Raggedy Ann doll. It looks far more creepy in her normal look. Than
I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Just for the fact that it's so normal looking, you know, I mean, kids of a couple of generations ago, everybody had the Raggedy Ann doll. So that's so innocuous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to have that be the thing that's so evil, to me, that's way creepier.
Absolutely. It's just like it's just like the twins in The Shining. You know, there's really nothing wrong with them. They're two little girls in blue dresses, but they're standing at the end of a long hall.
About them.
Yeah. Like they're just standing there at the long hall. Now they're creepy.
I don't know, dude. I think they're creepy as hell. But yeah.
Well, okay. I have one more question off the top of my head. Where do you guys draw the line? Is it vampires? Is it werewolves? Where do you go? That's good, and that's bullshit. We're done here.
That's a tough one.
Where's my scotch? Ghosts, I'm good with. Demons, there's a little bit of gray area there. That's kind of where I draw my line. I'm not a Bigfoot, cryptozoology guy. UFOs, it kind of depends. That's a little gray on me too. So that's kind of like where I draw my line.
So you're iffy on aliens, but no Bigfoot, no Sasquatch, no vampires, none of that crap.
Yeah, because again, I have not seen any evidence presented that would suggest, holy crap, we have this new species that we know nothing about. It's just a lot of inconclusive stuff and blurry video, which to me is kind of useless.
Yeah,
and aliens, like UFOs and stuff, I look up at the sky, I don't know what the heck that is. It's now a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object. Is it aliens? There's nothing suggesting that it is. I'm guessing it's more top secret aircraft.
Right. And I agree, because there are some very big red flags with the alien stuff. Like, me and my dad will get into those fun conversations, and the biggest thing that torques my head, it's like you have a United States battleship registering an unidentified object in the air that's actively jamming radar, which is an open act of war. And the commanding officer of that ship just goes, wow, that was weird. He doesn't scramble fighters. He doesn't take a shot at it. He doesn't call up somebody. He's just like, oh, wow, crazy. Move on. I don't see that. If they don't know what it is, why wouldn't he freak out and send that kind of stuff? So there's iffy questions for me too when it comes to aliens.
Mm-hmm.
But so you don't, what about, you said you don't know about demons. Do you just think demons are just asshole ghosts?
It could very well be. Like for example, Lucifer was the perfect angel, right? So there's some sort of celestial being. Again, you have to think of what's the concept of good and evil. Or is it just many shades of gray? I think that there are spirits that are pure, and there are some that are low-level vibrations that are just negative and nasty. It's sort of like you think about just the natural way things are. There's like in the beginning of our show, there's a quote we have from Sir Francis Bacon. Says, "In order for the light to shine so brightly, the darkness must be present." So it's just a natural state of being. Like if you think of fire keeps us warm and it lights the darkness, but then it can also destroy. So I think everything has a dark and a light side to it. I think the same thing with celestial beings, regardless of the religious background. There's some that are destructive and nasty and evil, and there are some that are, wonderful and benevolent.
It's that whole idea of having.
I think there are demons out there.
Just having balance. Got to have that balance. You can't have good without evil. You can't,
Everything in nature has balance. If you look at like early like Christian writing, God, quote unquote, the big guy, he was both the biggest asshole as well as the most benevolent and wonderful thing on the planet. Right. And people who were illiterate said, "What the F? Like, what the fuck?"
Yeah.
How could you saying, I need to pray to you because you are the most wonderful thing ever, but at the same time, if I breathe the wrong way, you're going to smite me and turn my family to ash. Like, that's kind of being a douchebag. So then they sort of split it off and then created this devil guy. He's all the bad stuff. Now God, he does all the good stuff. So you see, like, nature in itself has balance. It's natural to have balance. It's just depending, I guess, on how people kind of deal with it and rationalize it.
I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I see a lot, man. It's people that are, especially people that are religious or have some kind of philosophy that they follow, whether it be an organized religion that everybody's aware of, like Catholics and, you know, Protestants, whatever, born again Christians, whatever it may be. But I also see that there's a lot of the people that are active followers of those said religions don't necessarily buy into most of the stuff that is in the scripture itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so would you agree with that? That most people that are quote unquote, you know, a religion or following an organized religion, and they believe 100% that it is the truth. Do you think that they kind of don't necessarily believe in some of the wild stories in the Bible?
It's funny that you say that. Within like the last 3 months, we had 2 guests on that talked about religion and the Bible and the Holy Bible, where they talk about people talking with spirits, receiving visions, you know, and doing quote what we would now call witchcraft in the Bible. It was considered a holy act and a miracle. Now, again, depending on who's doing it and who's accusing, now suddenly it's witchcraft and evil and must be persecuted. You have diehard people and extremists in every religion, right? And there are some that believe that the Holy Bible is the exact divine word of God. You know what I mean? But again, there are others like me who believe, no, it might have been inspired by God, but it was mankind, right, who wrote it down and added their own stuff into it to make it of their own making. You go to any open house ghost hunt anywhere in the United States, and you ask, okay, what religion you are? I'll bet you, thinking of the ratio it is in this country, 60% are probably Christian or Catholic. It's like, well, your Bible says that thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. What are you doing, you know, holding a crystal and wanting to talk with witches and with ghosts? That your Bible says that's a no-no. But they still say, but I believe. So I think people rationalize for themselves that I think it's okay if Saint somebody is able to raise the dead, you know, conjure, able to talk to spirits, talk to demons, and see ghosts and receive visions and talk to God. Why can't I? You know what I mean? So I think they kind of rationalize it in that way. I have no problem talking with ghosts as long as I know where I'm grounded.
Very cool. That was a great point, actually, Eric. Because there are people that believe they are approached by deities as well. Mm-hmm. It's not just ghosts. You know what I mean? So yeah. So that's interesting for sure. Do you believe in that? Do you think it's possible because you said you're Catholic? That's your choice to follow that belief system. Do you believe that it's possible to communicate with God and
talk to God? Oh yeah, I talk to God on a regular basis. Like I said, man's relationship with the divine started the minute that human beings stepped on the planet and wondered, is there something greater than I? Mm-hmm. And then they started formulating this thought of must be a greater power here somewhere. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what you call that greater power, it doesn't really matter. It's like a universal truth and an energy out there somewhere of something greater than I. I can't say my God is greater than yours. It's simply we have a relationship with some divine being. We just call it something different in the way that we show, which is organized religion, how we show our appreciation, let's say, to that God is what they call religious dogma. But anyway, like I said, I have no problem with talking to God. And like when I smoke a cigar and have my scotch at night after my little girls are in bed, my wife's watching TV, that's my time that I have out of my day to sort of sort some things through. And I have my little talk with God and say, thank you for all these other things. I know I kind of messed up here and there. I'll try and be a better person and do this. And then sometimes I get some advice that whether I like it or I don't, it's still constructive criticism, and I take it for what it's worth and then kind of move on with my day. So yes, do I talk with God? I like to think that I do.
Very cool. Very cool. Cody, your thoughts?
What? Why are you putting me on the spot, man?
Talk to God, bro.
Do I talk to God? I talk to God. I talk to spirits. I talk to all kinds of people.
With him. That's what you told me. I don't know these guys.
Well, I lent him $5. He owes me. I'm a little short this week. No, I'm kidding. No. I'm pretty much of the same mind as Eric is. I don't know where I stand on it all, man. I believe 100% in an afterlife. I do not believe this is the end of it. I've seen too much. I've been around too much to not, it just doesn't make sense to me, you know? And I'm the same way. If I feel, and when I feel the need, I have to reach out, and whether you call it God or Jehovah or whoever the hell you call it, everybody, I think, on their own time reaches out to whoever they need to reach out to, you know? And that can also mean, you know, their grandma. I think we all feel connections to people we've lost. And sometimes, Vicki mentioned it earlier, you know, you walk around and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, so-and-so's here. And I've had that happen, and I will go, how you doing? You know, that kind of thing. Like, you almost feel compelled to reach out and go, hey, I get you. I feel you too. Like, right on, dude. Mm-hmm. You know, and whether it's just something in your brain that just kind of clicked and you're having like a deja vu type moment, or it's real, I think the results are the same. It gives you a little bit of something more than you had before you started doing it, you know? As far as the afterlife demon and hunting, I just want to do more because I've never experienced it enough. You know? So I don't know about all of the demon hunting stuff.
Yeah. Deja vu is pretty interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that, because really that is a convincing factor for a lot of people, because they're like, And especially if it's happened to you several times. I know that I have felt that experience before, and it's pretty creepy, man. When you feel like the exact same situation is reoccurring, it's kind of weird.
It's a glitch in the matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Eric. Yeah.
So most people in our little world will tell you that a deja vu is really a moment of precognition, sort of playing in reverse. So when you have that, it's not necessarily that you're reliving a moment, but you're remembering a precog moment from before. So it's a little weird, but it's kind of an interesting way to look at it.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So you're remembering a premonition
so
that
like you had like a premonition of that moment previously. So the deja vu is just a sudden triggering of having had that in the past.
I see what you're saying.
Like you may not have recognized it before.
Yeah, so at some point your brain was like, one day you're going to be fishing, and then you're fishing and your brain goes, see, told you. And that's what you're experiencing.
And I don't know if it's accurate, but it's an interesting way to look at it.
No, that is actually, I've never heard that before.
A little psychic moment that you had previously.
That's trippy. Very,
very cool, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, guys. It's so awesome. We normally don't talk about this subject, and it was just a one-off thing, you know, because I had a little weird experience that, whether or not you believe it was a legitimate experience or just one of those things that happens based on scientific explanations. The point is that Cody and I are very much into all these topics, and we're not limiting ourselves to anything. Yeah. So it's not just about music and the music business. We like to talk to people about all kinds of things, all things entertainment, especially.
Even though music brought us together, because without any given sin, we don't have this show. So at the end of the day, it's still music brought us together. It's all about the metal, baby.
Right.
Do you believe, with your clinical psychology background, do you believe that there's any case where it's not just some dude who's lost his gourd, and it actually is an instance of, look, this dude might actually have been just fucking a demon and just fucked somebody up? Or is it just like, nah, that serial killer, he's psycho. This is where we can trace it. That's it. I'm not even going to go that far with it. Like, have you seen any of them? Because you like serial killers. So has there been any serial killer that you went, there's something more that I can't really pinpoint?
Oh, we talk about this all the time on the show, where we talk about someone that has done the most hideous act to another human being and shake our head thinking, obviously that person's not all right in the head. We're not really sure why, but that's just not right.
Yeah.
What caused them to do that? Is that a malfunction, a physical malfunction of the brain? Is it the brain chemistry went off the deep end, or is that person possessed, let's say, by a demon or some kind of negative entity or whatever vocabulary term you want to use?
Right.
I'm open to the idea that, yes, some people could be possessed by a demon, and that is what is taking over their body and making them do insane acts on other people. But I think that's like a percentage of a percentage that I think it's demonically possessed. I think other than that, it is a combination of behavior, upbringing, and hardwiring that causes people to do these nutty things.
So you think there's a chance?
I'm open to it. Like I said, I haven't seen any evidence that says, no, that's not possible, right? I've seen a lot of things that I've ruled out saying, no, I think that person just has mental illness. But like I said, I haven't seen anything that tells me it definitively no. So my mind is open that the possibility could be there. I just have not found it yet.
That makes sense.
You think there's any kind of connection, Eric, to mental illness and the possibility of maybe having an open connection with the outside world?
There are many cultures that consider people with schizophrenia and other types of mental illness as almost as like shamans, for example. They look at them as connected to the divinity. They see sights that no one else can see. They hear things that no one else can see. Other cultures interpret that as messages from the gods, and they're revered for having that ability.
What's your personal belief?
And to be honest with you, I can tell you, I've met some people with extraordinarily interesting things to say. And it's like, that person's really not crazy. There has to be something else going on. Working in the mental health field, I've met Jesus Christ numerous times. I've met Satan. I've met all the avenging angels, all the demons. You name them. I've met them at one point or another. Now, you laugh, right? But if someone walked in and said, I'm here for a mental health evaluation, I've been picked up by the police, they say I'm schizophrenic, but I'm Jesus. I'm back. Who the hell am I to say, no, you're not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who am I to say, no, you're not? I'm more interested in talking with them. And like I said, I don't want to be wrong. Like, what if that was Jesus?
That song, If God Was One of Us.
Exactly. Like that song by Sharon. It's Joan Osborne.
Yeah, Joan Osborne. Holy crap. That's a poll.
What if God was one of us?
Yeah.
There are people that have amazing things to say. And again, depending on the culture, and the Western culture, we label that as a negative. It needs to be fixed with medication, and you're crazy. You're something less than human because you have mental illness. And they'll point to people that do violent things and saying, see, that's what can happen, rather than think of like artists, musicians, for example, or just people who put like paint on a canvas that do amazing things. And you say, well, what if mental illness, quote, fueled that or caused that? That's a positive, right? Because you see things in a completely different way. It's not necessarily a negative. You basically base the behavior. If you did something shitty, like if I did something shitty,
that's on the outlet.
Yeah, I'm an asshole. You know what I mean? I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
If I created a beautiful work of art or found the cure for cancer tomorrow, I did something wonderful. If someone who has mental illness did the same thing, something shitty, person's an asshole. Person did something great, they should be applauded for it.
Makes sense.
Well, that makes sense for sure. Yeah. I don't know. But the thing that strikes me the most is when you're talking about someone that might have mental illness, there's all kinds of possibilities to what brought on, whether it was genetic or it was alcohol abuse or drug abuse, you know what I mean? Because all those things, wouldn't you agree, bring some kind of mental instability to light?
Absolutely. When they do a mental health screening, they first do toxicology to say, is this behavior induced by alcohol, drugs of illegal or prescription kind? Does the person have like a massive fever? Does the you know what I mean? Your B12 levels off. That causes, symptoms that we could misinterpret as mental illness. That's why it's a very long process to kind of weed out all the other possible diagnoses other than mental illness. There's tons of different things that can cause it. It can be a physical, problem with the brain. It can be actual brain damage, or it could just be a biochemical imbalance. Like I said, that's why with people with many more letters after their name gets to do this stuff than relying on me. But the way I look at it is, it takes one to know one. That's what got me through my career.
What's the one thing you would say to our viewers to get them to check out your podcast?
honestly, we have great conversations about a lot of topics. So it's not just serial killers and cannibalism. Sometimes we talk about UFOs and ghosts and everything running the gamut of the paranormal. And Eric and I have a good time, and we have fun guests, and it's a good hour. It takes you away from whatever your Monday was, and gives you something else to focus on for a little while. So we always have a good time.
Works for me.
The dark side of the paranormal world. Ladies and gentlemen, check out Dark Sun Rising on darksunradio.com. Erick B and Vicky V. You guys are so awesome. Thanks for coming out. We're going to have them back, folks. So hit that subscribe button, because they're going to be back real soon to talk about their favorite serial killers and why.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you missed, Vicky. We were telling Eric that we were going to do our favorite serial killer lists and go down deep path, have you guys back on and talk killers.
Okay, we can do that.
I'll bring some scotch.
Beautiful.
Always.
Beautiful. All right, everybody. Go support art. Go check out Dark Sun Rising Radio. Go make sure you shout out all your favorite bands and do whatever you got to do. Come back next week for another episode. Take care of yourself. Always forward. Be good humans. Peace.
Thanks, guys.